Now our polar bear has to eat, just like characters in a game have different lives that if you lose them, your game will be over. So, from our website, we've learned that polar bears really like to eat seals. So, we're going to get a sprite for some seals, make that the energy for our polar bear. We'll call our sprite SPR_seal. We're going to edit sprite because we're getting our sprite from a strip. So, file, create from strip. And I'll come down to where I have my seals saved. We're going to click. So these are our cute little seals. I'm going to move my box to where I will just have, and it looks like his little tail is getting cut off here. So he's a little bit bigger than 64 by 64. So I'm going to add probably 5. Cut off a little bit there. I'm going to try. If I move him down, still a little cut off there. So we're going to go 70, 54. Okay, maybe he's a big seal. All right, that got my seal about perfectly. Image height looks like it's still very good, but we'll go ahead and change him to 70 just so he has a little breathing room there. And move my box around. Perfect. So there's my seal sprite. I only want one image, so I'm just going to say OK. So now I've got my seal here. Because I do really want him to be 64 by 64, so he fits in our boxes, I'm going to go to transform and then stretch. And so for my height here, I'm going to put 4 to 54. Looks like he's going to be a little bit shorter than I want him to be, but I'm going to keep my width at 64 and say OK. So there's my seal. Click our green check here. So we've got our sprite for our seal. We'll say OK. I also learned that oil spills are a huge threat and climate change are a huge threat to polar bears. So they're going to be my enemies in the game. Now, climate change is where maybe my walls are melting. So I'll give the game levels less walls for him to jump on as the levels get harder. So now I'm going to make my sprite for my little oil spill. So I'll click my create sprite. That's PR_. We'll just call this oil. And we're going to go to edit sprite. Now, instead of loading it from a sheet, we're just going to go to file, new. We'll make our width 64 and say OK. This time we double click, we have a blank canvas. So I'm going to enlarge that using the zoom tool. And let's make our oil spill round. So we're going to make it black for our left button there, black and round. So I'm just going to draw a black round circle. Uh-oh, white in the middle. Probably because that right is white. We can just fill that up. So we'll go to fill here. And there we go. And then we're going to say OK. And OK again. And now we have our oil spill and we're going to say OK. So we have our sprites for our energy and our enemies in the game. We're going to start with our enemy object. So we'll go to create object. LDJ_enemy. We're going to assign it a sprite from our drop-down menu, and we're going to select the oil. Now, on create event, when we create our enemy, we want them to move. We have to decide which direction we want it to move. Are we going to have the soil moving up and down, or left to right, or in diagonals? We'll just choose left to right this time. And then we're going to give it a speed of 3. That way it's a little slower than our character, and it'll make it easier for the character to pass the enemy, and it'll get harder as the levels go on. And then we're going to say okay. Now we need to make the enemy kind of bounce off the walls too, so that it doesn't go through the walls. So we're going to add event, collision, with our wall. When it collides with the wall, we want it to bounce. So we're going to get it to bounce, not precisely and only against solid objects, which means that it'll bounce against any walls that we put in or anything soft. And we'll say okay. Now that we're done, we're going to say okay. And let's put us some enemies in our level when you double click the room to be sure that our oil is moving correctly. So we'll go to the Objects tab, drop down menu, Object Enemy. And I'll put 2 enemies in there. Here we go. And let's see if they do what they're supposed to do. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, just 2 this time. Won't make it too hard. All right, and we're going to play our game right here on the play button. And there's our objects. And you see how they're moving back and forth. Let's see if they hit the wall, and that they do. We'll click exit here. You're going to want to save your file right now so that you don't lose anything and have to start over. Now we have to set the energy and the lives for our polar bear, our main character. So we're going to make a new object, resources, create object. We're not going to give it a sprite because we don't want people to see it. It's a controller sprite, which allows us to control the game. So when the sprite is created, we're going to add an event, create. We're going to go to the score tab, and we're going to go to set lives. Set lives. We're going to give our polar bear 3 lives. Then that's going to make sure that in the game there are 3 lives at the start of each of the levels at the beginning of the game. And then we're going to click OK. Just go that OBJ, we'll call it OBJ controller. And we'll say OK. Now we're going to go to our object polar bear, double click it. So now we're going to tell it what it does when it collides with the enemy. So we're going to add event, collision. We're colliding with our enemy there, which is the oil spill. We're going to go to the score tab, and we're going to set lives. And we're going to set lives at -1, and to make this relative, which means it will continue to take your lives until you're done. When our polar bear gets a life taken away from him, we kind of want him to restart. So from the main move panel, we're going to click jump to start, and that applies to the character. And we'll say, okay. Now we got to tell it what to do when there are no more lives. So we're going to add event. We're going to other. Okay. And we're going to go to end game when there are no more lives. So no more lives. So when there are no more lives, we want the game to restart under control. So under main two, we got restart game. We're gonna restart our game. Now, if you had a start menu or you can restart this game menu, you could tell it to go there when there are no more lives. But for now, we're just going to tell it to restart our game. Now, we want to be able to get extra lives, which is when our polar bear gets food, which we've already established the main food of a polar bear are seals. So here we're going to say, okay, and let's go and create an object to pick up lives. OBJ underscore. We're going to assign a sprite of our seal. We got to tell it what to do when it collides with our character because it's going to add energy to the polar bear. So when it collides with a character, we want it to add lives. So we'll set lives, right, at 1, and relative, so continue to add to your life as you go on. And I say, okay. Now, after the polar bear eats the seal, we kind of want the seal to disappear. So from the main tab, we're going to click Destroy Instance because it will get rid of the seal in the game. And we'll say OK. And say OK. Now in our room, we double click to get to our room. I'm going to go ahead and add some more walls here for a polar bear to jump on. And because this is a pretty easy level, I want to make sure that he can easily kind of jump up and get to places. Maybe I don't want that there. You right click on it and you click delete. And maybe I want one up here. And maybe I want one up here. Now, because climate change is another enemy of the polar bear, we might actually get rid of more of these walls because the ice would be melting with the climate change. Now let me add some food for our polar bear to eat. So I'm going to add a seal. I'm going to add another seal here. I'm going to add a seal here. We'll add a seal here. And we'll add a seal here. And as the levels go on, there will be more oil slicks, less walls because of climate change, and due to that, less food for our polar bear here to eat. We're going to click OK. And let's play our game. All right. The seal, yay! Our polar bear has been eating. We picked up another seal. I ran into a thing. Oh, we didn't put our controller sprite in there. So we go back to our room, make sure we put our controller sprite in there because that sets the lives at 3. You see how it's this little blue ball? That's how you know it's in the room, but it's not going to show up when we play our game. So let's go ahead and test it again. Let's play. This time when I get hit, the game shouldn't restart until I get hit 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And the game restarts. Now it would be nice if we knew how many lives we actually had in the game. Let's go to our room. And if you look right down here, it tells you the coordinates that your mouse is on in the room. So I want to draw how many lives I have right here in this corner. And so that is an x64, y0 right down there at the bottom. So we're going to say okay. And on my object controller here, I'm going to add a draw event. So event, draw, draw. And what I want it to do is draw the number of lives I have. So I go to score, and we're going to use draw life as images, or we can draw lives, period. So let's draw lives as images. Remember, our x coordinate was 64 and our y was 0. And on the image, we're going to give it the polar bear sprite. And we'll say, okay. So it will draw the numbers of lives as an image. And we're going to say, okay. We made sure our controller was already in the room. So when we play now, there are the number of lives we have. And see them going away as I hit our oil spill. And we'll see them add. There we go. When we get more seals. This is a very basic game. This you would add more levels. You can position your seals and polar bears in different places to make it harder for the polar bear to get seals and to avoid the evil oil spills. Now, seals are not animals that are stationary. So we're going to go to Object Seals, and we're going to get them to move. So we're going to go to Add Event, Create, and we're just going to want them to move from side to side. And we'll give them a speed of 4. That will make them move fast, and our polar bear will actually have to catch the seals, just like he would in the wild. There we go. Oh, all of our seals went out of the room because we didn't make them collide with our wall. So we go back to our object seals. We have an event, collision with the wall, and we're going to want it to bounce, not precisely against solid objects, and say okay. And then we say okay again. And now when we test, our seals and our oils spills and our wall should stay in the game. See? Now he comes to me or runs away.